Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to make a little decorative sleeve for my drinking horn. This is one I picked up at a rain fair like quite a while ago, and I never really wore it around my belt because I didn't really find any sleeves that I liked, and the ones I actually liked were a bit too large because most drinking horns are a bit larger than this one, at least the ones that I found at the fairs. So I decided to make my own, and to actually make my own without leather. And for that I picked up my leather effect clay from Fimo, and I wanted to really try to use this for quite a while now. This has been sitting in my stash for like ages. I used it for one project before, but that didn't really play on the like leather effect kind of thing. So this is practically me trying to make a thing that usually is made out of leather with leather effect. And I chose this like darker purplish pink, and I'm also going to use orange because the theme I'm going to go with is foxes. So the first thing I did was to make basically the strap that goes around the belt. I made some holes for some screws that are gonna be fastening this, and I also left a little bit on the bottom for the piece that will hold the drinking horn. And all I'm doing is just rounding out the edges. I actually spent some time conditioning this clay before, and one thing I noticed, especially when you put it through the roller, is you really want it not too thick. If you have too much clay like this right now, it will absolutely break apart. You want like basically, if you like fold it for your roller, make sure you only fold it once and not like 2 times or something, what you do with other clays, because it will immediately break. This clay is a bit more fragile than others. I guess that's from the leather effect stuff that they put in there. But you actually can achieve gradients, and you can like smooth it out pretty decently and actually apply details into it. It's a bit more stiff than other clay. It has a bit more of a rubbery feeling. But overall, for the use case of it, it works really well. And all I did was basically cut the straps to length that I made with the gradient. I wanted to have the gradient on the bottom that would hold the horn. And I just wanted to, like, first of all try if the gradient worked, and second of all also try to see if the colors would like fit together, because I really wanted the orange and the pink. And it worked out surprisingly well. Also, one other thing I did is I used bacon bond. And it was basically also like a total experiment if this would even work with this kind of clay or if it would separate, but in the end after baking it actually worked out really well. So after blending, which took quite a while, and I needed to be quite careful because the clay would like pull up in like little more chunky pieces, I basically just smoothed it out and cut the corners so it looked nicely, and then I poked in some holes after cutting it to length and measuring it around my horn, and these will hold the straps later. I basically also designed this very simple like embellishing thing. You can like print it, I guess, for leather or for this. This is also a nice thing. You don't really have to put much effort to like decorate this. You can actually sculpt on it as a clay in comparison to leather where you need to wet it and then basically set it that way and get the imprints this way. You can like get a little bit more detailed with this clay and add material on top. Sadly, my first try didn't work, so I had to spend literal ages to peel that out. So the second try, I basically tried to fix the strap and like smooth it out. And then I just used some plastic wrap, and that worked actually pretty well. The design was inspired by like historical like wall decorations and ceiling decorations they would use. And I just went into my drawing program, drew something up, and then extruded that and printed it on my 3D printer. You cannot really see the design too much on the video, sadly, but in person it turned out really well. Now, one thing the leather effect did in some parts, it definitely became way more shiny, and I don't know why that is. I mean, the insides totally picked up the texture that my baking paper has, but that's with almost all polymer clays that I tested. But it became way more shiny after baking. And actually, while it was still warm, like in other clays harden, they still have a soft stage after you pull them out the oven. I just used a cup to like bend this one downwards, because yes, the clay stays bendable but not that flexible, so if you pull it out of the oven it's still a bit warm and flexible. You can like shape it to the right shape. And then I wanted to test out the fastener, which I measured beforehand, and apparently this clay like melts or shrinks a little bit in the oven. So I had to like scrape tiny bits off of it, but it worked really well in the end. And technically I'm practically done. All I need to do is add some ribbon in the front, but I really wanted to decorate it a little bit more. I was super happy with this so far, but I wasn't really happy with like the simplicity of it. And as I said, I wanted to make it fox themed, so I decided to basically cover up the fastening screw with some sculpting. And to match like the texture of the clay and to actually try out how detailed you can get with sculpting, I'm also using leather effect purely for the sculpt. So basically I'm going with a very simplistic stylized fox head, all purely out of leather effect clay. When I bought this, I got like a full-on set with like a lot of colors of them, and like I guess they're more like smaller half packs. You can actually get them for like a lot of other Fimo products too, but yeah, also for leather effect, and I really wanted to test out multiple colors, that's why I picked it up. And I decided to just try and see how this would work. Now the one thing I noticed, especially while making certain details like the nose and the ears, is that yes, the clay sticks to each other, but to really blend it you need to go super slowly, super carefully, or else it gives like a weird texture or it like rips away weirdly from the sides. But you can actually like blend it together without having to use any kind of liquid bake bond medium, which I honestly prefer for these kinds of smaller sculpts, because I found that bake bond can make your hands kind of sticky sometimes, and then you get the colors of the clay, especially on like lighter colors, and it is just, it's a very useful thing, but sometimes it can be quite annoying to work with. And since I'm working with lighter and darker colors here, definitely happy that I didn't have to. And another thing I obviously noticed is for like things like the ears, where I basically shaped them and then put two colors inside of each other, so the orange with the white accents on the inside. I noticed that you definitely want to kind of, even if it's just marginally with like a toothpick, blend the edges together a bit, because I like had it that yes, the clay stuck together, but it also had a tiny bit of lift off on the side. And I was just worried that if I bake it, yes, it would bond, but the edges would like stand proud, and then maybe it would actually just peel off, like the white from the orange. So I just carefully blended it. I don't know if it would actually peel off. I think the clay over baking definitely gets a stronger bond, because it melts a tiny bit, but better safe than sorry, as I always say. And with all the detailing and the eyes added, basically this tiny fox head is done. It wasn't the easiest material to sculpt with, but it's definitely not the worst one, and it works if you want like a detailed leather effect kind of thing with like the texture or the softness of the clay. You can definitely pick up a lot of leather effect and just try to sculpt it. It doesn't hold certain details, but it still does the things that it holds pretty well. I think the challenge I had and why I added it last was basically the snout, but since I wanted a bit more like of a noticeable snout either way, I basically indented it a bit more, and that worked really nicely in the end, and I think this tiny little fox turned out super adorable. After baking, I wanted to attach it to the screw, and I just basically used some putty, glued it down to the surface, and I'm going to use Uhu End Fist. This is an industrial strength 2-component glue, and I found it holds really well with a lot of things metal. So I actually scratched the surface of the screw, and I'm going to slightly score the back of this polymer clay or Fimo, just to make sure that it will stick, and then I'm just waiting for that to harden for 24 hours. and that should give a nice bond. And in the meantime I chiseled a waxed kind of bracelet string that matches the color that I want, and I'm just going to lace it in. It was a bit more of a challenge since I made the holes quite small because of the space constraints I had. But also, in the end, once you got the ends through after they were frayed and you struggled with it a lot, it actually worked out really nicely. The size of the holes I made actually fit perfectly for the string overall, and you can really easily change the size of this. And all I did was basically just make a double knot, make a tiny little bow, and then I folded it downward so it wouldn't hang weirdly because this is a different material. And then lastly I wanted to detail the eyes of the fox. Basically the screw just screws in like normal, you can tighten it from the back and the fox set holds really well on it. And actually this one has another function. The fox set will not just be for decoration actually, but it will be solving a problem that I really struggled to like figure out. Some of these holders will have an extra strap for holding in your drinking horn. I didn't really know how to make this with this kind of sculpting medium because you need to have a certain thickness for it to not like break and rip, and it is only a certain amount of flexible. To remedy that, this fox head will also serve as a little bit of a stop for this horn to not fall out. So you can see when I push, the horn gets stuck on it and it protrudes a bit more, and once I actually like tilt it a bit further back, it will actually come out pretty easily. And if you wear it on your belt, it's flat like on the side of your hip or something, it shouldn't actually tilt too much backwards, so there's like way less of a chance that it actually will fall out. Overall, I'm super happy with this how this turned out. I love the details, I love the color like gradient, I love the fox head. I'm not really happy about the sheen that the clay got, but that must just be something like the oil releasing while baking while it's hardening. I don't know if there's any like remedy for that besides just like maybe like sanding it down a tiny little bit with a fine grit sandpaper to make it look matte or something. But it has kind of a rubbery texture, so I don't know if that will actually work, but I might try it in the future. But it fits on my belt nicely, and it will certainly, hopefully, hold up at the next few Ren fairs, when the Ren fair season starts over here. Noble working with the leather effect was actually quite pleasant. Yes, it behaves a bit differently, but it definitely has a nice leatherish kind of look. And it is definitely a bit more of a challenging clay to work with, but it's lots of fun and you can make flexible things. I think this is like the predecessor to like cosplay that actually stays a bit more flexible when you bake it. At least from what I know. I know the Fimo leather effect existed for a pretty long time so far. I don't know if cosplay actually came before or after, but it basically has similar properties, but not quite. Cosplay is a bit more flexible and you can work it more detailed and like thinner. But overall, like in flexibility, it might be just a step between like normal Fimo sculpey and cosplay. And so far, even while like stress testing it, I didn't notice any rip in the materials, although my edges are a bit more uneven. But you can kind of blend that out. I just really like the rugged look, especially on the strap where I put the embellishments on. I think it really looks super nice, and it has like a bit of like an old-timey used feeling, even though it's obviously freshly made and still shiny and all that, but I'm sure it will get some weathering throughout me wearing it. But let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this project, and do you have any other ideas what I can do with the leather effect clay? I'm sure there's a lot of things that would be really nice to make with this, and I'm definitely planning to work with it a lot more in the future to make like some ornaments, decorations, some maybe wristbands, hair ornaments or something like that that you can tie your hair up with, and all the like. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time. Bye bye!